good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Titans made another addition to the 53-man roster with a waiver claim for former Colts defensive back Darrell Baker, who started 6 games for Indy last season. He finished second on the team in pass breakups. The team also re-signed tight end Nick Van Nett to the 53-man roster and added defensive lineman James Lynch to the practice squad. In other NFL news, the 49ers and wide receiver Brandon Ayuk have finally come to terms agreeing to a 4-year, $130 million extension with $76 million in guaranteed money. It ties Ayuk with Tyreek Hill as the 5th highest paid receiver in the NFL in terms of average annual value at $30 million a year. The Tennessee Vols season gets underway at home against UT Chattanooga on Saturday. Kickoff is set for 11:45. Vol Network coverage starts here on The Zone at 9:45. And Nashville Soccer Club hits the road Saturday to Orlando. Kickoff is at 6:30. Pregame coverage on The Zone begins at 6. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It's Football Friday here on Blaine and Zach, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. Blaine is out today, but I am honored to be joined by another Titans legend. How lucky am I that I get to talk to 2 Titans legends in 24 hours? And we got Brad Hopkins, B-Hop, in studio. Come chop it up with us at 615-737-1045 or in the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. B-Hop, I'm not sure what I've really done in a previous life to get to talk ball with you and Blaine in a span of 24 hours, but I appreciate you coming in today.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Zach.
Good.
You're learning quick, man.
I am.
I'll tell you what. It's good to be on with you, bro. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm ready. Yeah. I'm more excited, I think, to nerd out over offensive line talk. I'm a nerd when it comes to football and stuff. I played in like 9th grade, but I'm not like Lucas. You know, Lucas was part of an undefeated football team or something, you know, in high school. But so I'm a nerd, student of the game. So I'm excited on the next segment to really get into some offensive line, especially the Tennessee Titans offensive line.
You know, I feel like demonstrating some offensive line stuff. So maybe since we're on, you know, YouTube television with the Zone TV, I could show you some pass blocking stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I like it. You joke, but I've literally been thinking about, you know, maybe Blaine and B-Hop and, you know, these guys could start teaching people, you know, techniques and stuff and putting it on YouTube. I you know, just kind of been floating around with it.
Tutorials, man. You learn everything on YouTube anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. Listen, it's a football weekend. Football's here. College football starts up. Last night, Colorado was able to hang on and beat football powerhouse North Dakota State 31-26. And if I would have told you just off the street that Shadur Sanders threw for 445 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Travis Hunter went for 132 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns, and Jimmy Horn Jr. went for 198 receiving yards and a touchdown, you would probably have thought that it blew out North Dakota State. But they just let them hang around. What do you think about that game?
449 yards they gave up to North Dakota State.
Yeah.
They got Nebraska next week, bro.
Yeah.
So the problems are obvious. Now, when you're talking about Shadur and you're talking about Travis Hunter specifically, those are 2 dudes that definitely will be playing on Sunday. And probably within the first 10 picks, both of those guys may be gone. But as a team, their deficiencies are obvious. They cannot run the football. You know, I think that's why you saw them in passing, you know, in running situations where you're trying to bleed out the clock. They're throwing the ball. Why? Because they had to. You know, it was out of necessity. So we've got definitely the skill positions down. They're good, but they don't have the big bodies up front that can move the trenches consistently like the programs they're going to be playing against in the Big 12. And that's always been a problem since, you know, Deion has taken over in any capacity. It's just he has an easier job attracting those guys that really resonate with his image, his message, but that doesn't speak to the big boys, you know?
So is he ever going to be able to, maybe not this season, obviously, but is there a chance that there could be a culture shift, or is this the Colorado football team that we're always going to see? It's going to be an aerial attack, no hog mollies in the trenches, no power running game, nothing. Because you can't build that in a season, but you can build it over time.
But I kind of wonder if you don't build a program by what you have.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be a a head-banging situation to want to do something offensively, defensively, schematically, but you just don't have the dudes to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So then you start catering or tailoring, rather, your system to just realistically what you have to be able to run that system. So let's just say they don't have a 5-star quarterback like Shedeur Sanders running that offense next year. Maybe this dude's a 4-star that has the capability of really just kind of pulling it down, and the RPO is more of his option. He's going to run it on you. I mean, not just like, scat back style or whatever. I mean, I'm talking about getting some yards per game, like a Josh Allen type. Do you then have the kind of coordination from an offensive standpoint to bring out the best in that guy? You see what I'm saying? Or are you looking specifically for a type player to fit a system? I just don't see that.
Yeah.
Especially by the way he runs his system. He runs that like a pro style.
Yeah.
That's why you have so many guys coming and going, because it is literally like free agency. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
So you're talking about like in programs that are replacing 50 and 60 dudes at a time. I mean, that's hard from a chemistry standpoint. There's got to be some motivation other than the NIL.
So, I mean, he only won 4 games last year, if I got that correct. Colorado did last year. If he goes through another losing season with his antics to continue to pile up with the transfers they see coming in and out, I mean, does he have a long leash? Because the Colorado Athletics Department sure does go to bat for him, make sure that they ban people from press conferences and asking questions, and, they give him a lot of power. Yeah. At what point do they pull the plug, or is this just a placeholder for him until the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, man, I really wish I'd have got your thoughts about what, Dion and the Colorado program did to, guys that they just didn't want to deal with.
Right.
Anyway, that's for another show. So who's going to blink first, basically? Are they going to just stand by and just wait and see if this thing turns, like a cargo ship in the middle of the sea? Or are they expecting a more rapid return on their investment? What, bringing a guy that had brought College Game Day to Boulder? Are you kidding?
Right.
Like in the first year he was there.
Yeah.
So we can see the excitement, but it just hadn't shown up in the win column. Other than the winning the ones that you're supposed to win in the first beginning of the season. But when you got into the regular season, you got into a regular season schedule, you were getting thumped.
Yeah.
You were getting DDT'd. Bow!
And now it's probably going to happen next week.
Exactly. Exactly. You can't run the football, but you're going to try and stop Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I understand you got some tremendous athletes on offense that can make some plays for you, man, but you don't want to get in a pissing match with a skunk, bro.
Right.
And that's what they're going to be with, because they have to put up points. So I don't know. It's just... It'll be interesting to see if the NFL, maybe even Shedeur's success himself as a pro, doesn't lure his dad to the league.
That's what I'm kind of leaning towards. So speaking of Shedeur and Travis Hunter, right? So you alluded earlier, they're 2 top 10 picks more than likely. I mean, they have a good head start so far, so we'll see how they're able to maintain success throughout the whole year. But they are high-level athletes.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Titans... Look, I know that a lot of people are just using Vegas odds and putting them in the top 5, picking in the NFL draft. But there is a scenario where the Tennessee Titans are picking in the top 10 again in this year's draft. Would I bet money on it? No, but I have a little bit of a rosier outlook than some people. But realistically, it's something to consider.
Yeah.
And when you got these athletes, let's say like Travis Hunter, you have a need at wide receiver. Travis Hunter can play wide receiver, obviously, at a high level. And he's going to be super conditioned at this point by the time all the snaps that he plays and everything. But he's not a guy that can really... You're either drafting him to be a corner or drafting him to be a wide receiver. He can't do both in the league, can he?
I was just about to ask you that.
Because I don't think so.
I'm thinking about Now, listen.
Yeah.
Could Dion have ran routes?
Yeah, probably.
Now,
I would
we
say
know
so.
what he was as a cover guy.
Yeah.
One of the best in the game.
Right.
Or a return dude.
Sometimes he ran routes for receivers.
It's almost like Dion drafted himself, even though he has images of his own by his birthright. You know? So Travis is another extension of that legacy of sorts. I mean, he kind of probably looks at him like a dad,
Yeah.
Not trying to offend Travis Hunter's father if he's actually out there. Sorry. We're just making comparisons by ability. Because Travis Hunter, I'm trying to think of any other dude that was that athletic that could have done both.
It's been a while. I mean, the last guy that did both was Troy Brown. I mean, Julian Edelman did it a little bit, but not like a full-time at a high level.
But was Troy Brown a real, like a lockdown corner dude? Nah, he's a receiver first.
Yeah.
But I think that Travis Hunter has that kind of defensive mentality that corners have, right?
Right.
But he also has the skills like we saw last night.
Yeah.
Catch the back of a football.
So for me, it's like if I'm a team, I'm drafting them in mind that there's a plan A, and then if you can do both, you could do both. So whether that plan A is whether him being a wide receiver for my team or a cornerback for my team, I'm getting a top level athlete. I just think that it would be really hard. And Mike Herndon brought up this point on Twitter, who's a Titans analyst and has been on Football and Other Efforts with me. But he is a guy that I look at Travis Hunter. Can he handle the complexities of both an offensive and defensive playbook to be able to do both? That seems like a lot of brain power and time to. Is there enough to do that?
But it depends what system you're trying to run.
Okay.
There are people that now are of the thought, let's make it simple, or at least more simple, so then that way these kids can play fast.
Gotcha.
Because playing fast is the difference.
Gotcha.
I think I heard Coach Mack on with Lucas and Buck, and he said being in the right place but making the decision slow is a bad thing, because you'll never make a play.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and that's what happens when you start thinking. When you're wondering what you're doing because of the complexities of what you're trying to run, you're thinking, oh my gosh, is it right? What's my read here? Like, what if I have an option route? I got to make a decision based on the coverage I see. Me and the quarterback got to be on the same page. Yeah. What if I don't know what those options are? You see, versus you got to go, man. You've got a skinny post. You've got to come back.
Yeah.
You're telling them what to do. That because it just makes it easier for them to just go do that thing versus adding layers on way too soon for younger players. So it also depends what he's trying to run offensively. Now, defensively, I don't think it'd be that much of a problem. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Getting your technique. Obviously, if you're a neutralizer like a corner, you can play press coverage because I think he's one of those dudes that can do that, right?
Yeah.
Jam, disrupt the timing of the route, and then get into that cover, play in the shadow of the receiver, watching his eyes, watching his hands, do all those things. Do you have to necessarily know from that position like a safety, being able to read? Well, of course, if you're playing on the edges, that guy's not really going in motion from all the way out of X, across the field, whatever. You say, right. I'm not trying to get too detailed, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's either not as it doesn't have to be as complex as some people can make it sound.
Okay.
How about that?
I like it.
Yeah.
That's some football knowledge being dropped by Brad Hopkins. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Tennessee Titans offensive line, get into J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski, and Dylan Radins, and all those guys that are blocking for Will Levis and what they mean for this Tennessee Titans team's success in 2024. I'm Zach. He's B-Hop. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Let me tell you something. There is no better feeling in the world than rolling down the street on a Harley Davidson, baby. The roar, the rumble, people looking around, they're trying to figure out, where's that bike coming from? Where's that bike coming from? It's coming from right behind you, and B-Hop's on it. My man Ricky Kelly hooked me up with a beautiful 2024 Road Glide. Now, I usually don't honk with the Road Glides. I'm more of an ultra, one of those ultra unlimiteds, or maybe I'll even get on a tri-glide, one of those three-wheelers. But the new revamped fairing in the front there, it is gorgeous. And all the amenities, it kind of makes it look like you had a car on you. You know what I mean? From the, all the Bluetooth accommodations and, the gauges and stuff. But just the sheer power of riding a Harley Davidson and being that guy that people are looking at. You need to stop down to 1616 Harley Davidson Boulevard in Columbia. It's just a little bit past Franklin, down I-65 South, or call them at 931-540-0099, or you can check them out online at, of course, HarleyDavidsonofColumbia.com. And you know what? Tell them B-Hop sent you because it's real. My man Ricky, he'll hook you up. Take care, and I will see you on the streets on a Harley. Grab life by the throttle.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Blaine and Zach. I'm Zach, and that's not Blaine, but it is Brad Hopkins. B-Hop is Titans legend, is filling in for Blaine today, who is off. We are talking about the Tennessee Titans offensive line in this segment. And who better to kick us off than Jeff Simmons to actually talk about the offensive line? Because we have teamed up with Tennessee Titans defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons to help promote his inaugural fundraiser for his nonprofit Give 'Em a Reason on September 16th at Hall's Chop House in Nashville. Jeffrey started Give 'Em a Reason in 2022 to give something to Nashville's youth that he didn't have growing up, and hopes to inspire them, grow their self-esteem, and give them opportunities they may not otherwise have through hands-on activities. For individual sponsorships and tickets, please email Abigail at william-raymond.com. So he was actually on Ramon Kayla Will this morning, and he was asked about Peter Skoronsky, and he was telling the people, anybody that could listen, it's time to wake up and respect Peter Skoronsky.
A guy who I think he's one of the best guards in the league. He's strong as heck. Like sometimes I'll be trying to bull rush him, and it's just like this man, he's really strong. So, and that's Peter, man. Like I honestly believe, and I don't really like offensive linemen like that. But my teammates, I'm gonna give them their props, but. A guy like Peter, man, like I feel like, I don't know if it's because, of course, like we always talk about it, it's Nashville, it's a title, it's a little market, but I think people really need to watch Peter this year, and not just Peter, our whole offensive lineman, but like I've just been watching Peter since he came in as a rookie and seeing his growth, man. Like it's tremendous. It's like I love his game, and now it's just like he's got that confidence. He even talked a little smack to me this camp, and I wasn't expecting it. And that's just I feel like, where I came in as a leader and as a defensive lineman on his team to help him get that out of him, because it's just like when you press against a guy like Peter, it's like he got it, but it's something that he's not letting go. And when I tell you this camp, I just saw a different side of Peter, and even guys like that I really went against, like Dylan Radins. I thought Dylan was a great guy for one, but then when it comes to the football field, he's grimy, he's gritty, and he have got so much better. It's crazy because you be like, man, I'm finna beat him on this rush or whatever. Maybe I got this rush in my head, and they'll shut it down, and that just that shows growth for our offensive line.
So that was Jeff Simmons this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Hopefully you caught that live if you're listening to Ramon, Kayla, Will, because you should. And you should listen on the Zone app and go to wherever you download your apps and search 104.5 The Zone and download it. But he had some high praise for Peter Skoronski. And look, I wasn't a big fan of Peter Skoronski as a tackle coming out of the pre-draft process. I thought that he was going to be a guard, but I thought that he could be an all-pro guard because he was so technically sound and so good coming out of college. I just didn't think he had the size to really be a NFL-level tackle. And the Tennessee Titans agreed. And listen, their tackle situation was really terrible last year. They probably could have put him over at tackle just to try it out and maybe stop some of the flooding that was happening in the backfield. But at the end of the day, he has now rebounded, appendectomy last year. He's put on some weight. He looks really good. He looks the part. The skills are coming and putting together, and Big Jeff is expecting big things. And I think that the Tennessee Titans, when we talk about all these new additions and all these new shiny toys, we kind of forget about Peter Skoronski, who's kind of lost in the shuffle, who may be the best offensive lineman by year's end.
Well, first off, Peter and I are the same height.
Gotcha.
So he can actually play it.
But does he have your length?
I have basketball arms.
Yeah.
I get it, but kind of a small hand radius, I guess, if you will, comparatively speaking. When you were talking about one of the tackles in the draft, his stock dropping because they realized he had itty bitty hands. But if for a guy like Peter Skoronski, his strength is his leverage, regardless of what position he's playing. Does he have good enough footwork to play outside? Yeah, he does. Is he probably better served because of I think by physique, he's better to hold that guard spot than a tackle. And he is nimble enough to keep, lateral movement a thing. But Jeff mentioned his strength last year. He said, I know strong, and this dude here is strong. And he just mentioned it again with Ramon Canelo Will. Basically that he doesn't usually come against guys that have that kind of strength. Larry Allen was a dude that could bench 700 pounds, Whew. And people were scared the heck of him, as well they should have been.
Yeah.
Right? Because when this dude got his meat cleavers on you, it was a wrap. You ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Peter. And he does play with that level of intensity that you have to have as an offensive lineman. It is an error, like he mentioned with Dylan, the gritty, the grimy. See, D linemen don't like that.
No.
And that's why he mentioned not liking offensive line particularly, because those are the kind of guys that by all means necessary, they'll get the job done. And if it comes at the expense of your ribs, so be it. And that's the way they take care of each other up front. You know who else has brought a little element of nastiness to that offensive line too? Big 55.
Yeah.
He's been getting into the scruff with the fellas ever since he got here.
If Skoronski has someone engaged and here comes J.C. Latham with nothing to do but come hit you on the side, that guy's on the ground 100% of the time.
Exactly. Listen, so I played with, of course, Bruce Matthews for 10 years.
Yeah.
Bruce did some amazing things as an athlete. Okay, and his smarts up front, having played all three of the positions, center, guard, and tackle, and been a Pro Bowler at all of them, it just kind of showed you his range, right? But I loved playing with Zach Pillard. You know why? Because Zach is a maniac, and I would make sure that I played a guy on his outside to make sure that he went inside and got a healthy dose of Zach Pillard. Because this dude was coming with some intensity. I mean, he's a nut. You know what I mean? So, and you like playing, and defensive linemen hate that kind of guy. And that's what we got now. We got a bunch of this, even Lloyd Cushenberry, is nice and smart and all this good stuff. But he'll flatten you, with them big old pipes. Are you kidding me? So I like the fact that these guys up front, though we're not mentioning winning the trenches as much, is it going to be a problem this year as it was last year? No. Are they still learning some things? Of course. Is it going to be like an overnight instant thing? I get it. 3 games we haven't lost. Terrific. We're feeling really good about ourselves. But what happens now when you got to put a game plan together? What happens now when they start really game planning for you and you get the number ones versus against the number ones for 60 minutes? Backups, nobody's coming off. It's just you. Lock the doors. We're getting after it.
Yeah.
So that's going to be tell a different story. But these guys, they seem like they're learning under Bill's instruction, under the culture that Brian, his son, is creating, that they're going to be a huge part of what they do. Because we saw a lot of that this offseason, didn't we?
Right.
Or preseason, really. With Pollard and, of course, Spears, and even the guys that they were trying to, figure out who's going to be RB3. We saw a healthy dose of them running the football, which is going to be a huge part of their offense. Plus using those 5 tight ends they got at some point.
Yeah.
The ones that do stick. and become part of the rotation, this team is going to be a little more smash mouth than you think.
That's what I told. So when the 5 tight ends were announced and everybody's going into a spiral because, oh my gosh, they're keeping 5 tight ends. Look, I don't know if they're going to keep all 5 tight ends by the time week 1 rolls around or what. But when you go watch Bill Callahan's run game and see what he likes to do, what he likes to run out of during his time at Cleveland, he does a lot of gap. He doesn't do a lot of zone, but he focuses on that. He runs a lot out of 12 personnel, which is 1 running back and 2 tight ends. So to me, it made sense. I thought having 4 tight ends was a lock. 5 tight ends seems a little weird, but they said yesterday, Bill Callahan said yesterday, they're going to be, them and the linebackers are going to be playing a lot of special teams. But I think you're right. I think there needs to be an emphasis to let kind of people know that, yes, the Tennessee Titans are going to run more 11 personnel. That's 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers for those that may not know. And they're going to see a big uptick in 11 personnel. But 12 personnel ain't going anywhere because that's what Dad Callahan wants, and what Dad wants, Dad gets. And he's in charge of the run game, and he's designing it as per Brian Callahan. Bill Callahan is designing it. And at the end of the day, if they want to run out of 12 personnel, the good news is they also have the athletes at tight end that can catch passes out of 12 personnel. So not only are you hiding what you intend to do, which the previous regime had a hard time doing, you could almost predict. If Cody Hollister was on the field, they're more than likely running it, and all this stuff.
Right.
This year, it's going to be a little different. But to get the offense, a new offense, with a lot of new pieces in a groove, they're going to have to rely on the run and establish the run. And I think people think that they're just going to come out and just sling it all over the yard. And I don't think that's going to be the case for at least the first 4 to 8 weeks.
It just doesn't work in the National Football League.
Yeah.
Because incompletions basically stall out drives, which keeps your defense on the field way longer than they need to. Then ultimately they get run down, and then you start getting your head caved in. That's just what happens. I think that when you run the football effectively, that puts more bodies in the box, opening up the secondary, right? Because I've got to have that box safety come down now and get in there and be run support, because I can't just get it done with the front 7 that I have because they're gashing me. They're making plays. They're running toss sweeps. They're doing, they're running dives. They're doing all kinds of stuff, and I've got to, put more bodies there. Then that's when the explosive plays happen. So you have to have the run game to open up the pass game. Because if that's the case, then I can just sit back in nickel and just have DBs on the field everywhere waiting for you to throw the ball because I know you're not going to run it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you got to have that kind of diversity rather. And I think that that's what he has done in incorporating at least the 12 personnel, maybe even sometimes 13 personnel as a arrow in your quiver. Right?
Right.
Because you don't want to be known as. Now, does it make sense to have Hopkins, Ridley, and Boyd on the field together most of the time offensively? Of course, because that's what you kind of expect as a defensive coordinator. Those are their best players. You got explosive edge guys. You got dudes that run extremely crisp routes underneath and huge catch radiuses. So if Will Levis has time, we're in trouble, right? So you got to be sending dudes at him left and right, disrupt him, get him out of his pattern. But I just think that them being able to run the football, them being able to be grimy, then flex Chig out into some sort of slot situation, showing his range and flexibility, then you can do a lot more with that play. But because guess what? Tight ends, in my opinion, are they're bigger than guys that are trying to cover them, and they're faster than guys that are trying to tackle them. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like,
they're mismatches.
Yeah, right,
That's
exactly.
the whole point of a tight end is to have mismatches.
And the more of them you have, it just seems like the more explosive your offense can be. So, I just like him thinking outside of the box sometimes in that situation.
I love that they're not beholden to some certain number at every position. They are beholden to the best 53, and that's how rosters should actually, kind of be built and developed to make sure that you have the guys that you can trust in certain spots and all that kind of stuff. But I want to talk a little bit about Dylan Radins, who Jeff Simmons went out of his way to talk about. I mean, brought him up, talked about, like you said, the grit and the grime and, getting in there and being nasty. And he's kind of had a wild ride his first 4 years. And this is the first season where he has exclusively practiced at one position and owned his craft at one position. And I don't know what would have happened if Sadiq Charles had stayed and was still on this roster. I don't know if Dylan Radins is just the backup or if he actually wins the competition. But in your mind, what does Radins have to show to cement himself as the Titans' right guard beyond 2025? Like, he could be a candidate before free agency happens. They get a deal done and keep Dylan Radins. Like, what does he have to do to earn that second contract? What does he have to show on the field?
Consistency. And you're not that link.
Yeah.
The link that defensive coordinators are trying to attack, whether it's by stunts, games, blitzes. We're going to hit that guy right there because he is the weak part. We're going to make them cover him up, and then we're going to beat you in other areas.
Yeah.
If that's easily identifiable, then that's a problem.
Gotcha.
He can't be that guy. That's all it is.
So you're looking for him, like, even if defenses try that, he's got to answer the call and make them regret it.
They're going to try that.
And make them regret it.
They're going to try that.
Is what he's got to do.
I'm not going to sit here and run at this huge investment over here on this left side of the first, couple of first draft picks for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Or even this veteran in the middle in Mr. Cushenberry from Denver. I'm going to try these young puppy dogs out here, these guys that ain't even got no experience behind them, and see how well they handle, the things that we're going to throw at them. We're going to throw the kitchen sink at them. Yeah. And if he can respond to that and be consistent, you're going to lose sometimes. But it's also how you respond to that. You know? You can't make that same mistake twice. Learning from that loss and then being better the next time, making new mistakes.
Yeah.
They always talk about.
Yeah, Bill Callahan's a big mistake guy. He does not want to see repeat offenders, and he will bench repeat offenders. And that's something that he has talked about, something that he said.
No, he won't bench them. They bench themselves.
Well, there you go. I like it. I like that. I'm gonna write that one down and save it for later. Come on, write that
down. I didn't say that. Somebody said that a long time ago. I didn't bench you. It's like your dad. You just say that. You know what? I don't like punishing you.
Right.
But you punished yourself.
You brought this on yourself.
You brought this all on yourself.
There you go. Lloyd Cushenberry was named captain, and that's pretty important for his first year. But Callahan at his little breakfast with Brian retreat, that is, the media gets to ask questions in a relaxed environment, but there's no video or audio of it. Yesterday, he said Cushenberry's taking control of the offensive line room, even though not particularly boisterous. He's got a way about him, doesn't tolerate anything less than expected. Not surprised he was voted captain in first season. That's from John Glennon at Glennon Sports. So no surprise, because a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people, for whatever reason, maybe a couple of months ago, were harping on a lack of leadership on this team. And I brought it up on my podcast, Football and Other F Words, talking about they don't lack leadership. They maybe lack homegrown leadership, but they have about 9 or 10 veterans that should step up into a leadership position, and Lloyd Cushenberry was one of them. I mean, what does that tell you about Lloyd Cushenberry's effect on this offensive line room, that he was voted a captain by everybody in the locker room?
Well, first off, he does his job. Mm-hmm. Okay, no more, no less. He does his job. And two, he is one of the more experienced players on this offense.
Right.
We're not talking about the aging receivers, that are still making plays like DeAndre and whatnot. I'm not, saying. Besides them, if you think about it, all the draft equity that we're starting to see on that offensive side of the football, he's kind of overseeing all of that. That's one of the reasons why, Zach, I think he mentioned, I'm saying Will Levis mentioned when I think someone was asking him who he's made the best connection with, or who he's thought as a first-year player with the Titans, has made the biggest impact. And he mentioned Lloyd.
Yep.
Wasn't one of these great receivers that he's going to be working with. Wasn't Tony Pollard coming in, the Memphis product. It was a lineman, which does speak volumes. And the fact that he doesn't speak volumes, that says a lot without saying a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because the guy's like, I'm just going to go out here and yard dog who's ever in front of me. You with me? And next thing you know, they're buying in. So he's wearing the C for a reason, because he sets the tone. And he's also the guy with his hand on the ball first.
Yeah. It's a big development that after losing Ben Jones, right? Ben Jones was, I think a lot of people look at Taylor Lewan as the leader of the offensive line room. I've always considered Ben Jones to be the leader of the offensive line room. And then last year, Aaron Brewer, goes in at center, and there's just no cohesiveness. There's no one that really stepped up as a leadership, position in that room. Now you got Lloyd Cushenberry stepping up. It's just...
What a great point that you just made, because Ben's gone, Taylor gets hurt, and you're left to figuring out who's actually the one that's running the remote control in the practice. You know what I'm saying? What I mean by that is the players get together after practice, and we usually watch 3 games together in preparing for the week, right?
Right.
And usually the leader in that room is the one that controls the remote to kind of run plays back, run plays back, or he keeps going. And no one argues with who that guy is that has the remote because he's the guy that has the remote.
Did you have the remote, or was it Bruce Matthews?
Well, of course I didn't have it when Bruce was here. But Bruce, he handed me the remote.
Oh, you got it passed down?
I willingly accepted the remote. Yes. So when B left, of course I had the remote.
Yeah.
And then when I left, I think Michael Roos had the remote.
Yeah, that would make sense, right?
No. Because Rooster was still a young guy, so it wasn't Roos, because it was only his second year when I left. It was a very veteran, I can't even remember. Anyway, maybe it was Zach. I don't know.
It may be.
Why was it? No, I think I outlasted Zach. Anyway, but that guy, he rises to the top on his own. You know what I mean? It's like, when you walk into a room with a bunch of dudes, it ain't that long before the head dude,
right?
You know who it is.
You know who everybody's looking at, talking to. Yeah. You know
he
that
separates
guy.
himself. And it's the same situation here. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
his aura.
Yeah. It's interesting because for me, it's like everybody looks at, like I said, Taylor Lewan.
Look at your aura.
So much aura,
but it's not
it's
glowing.
And I think he grew into or advanced at a slower pace to be a leader. But to me, it's just always been Jones. And it doesn't have to be your center. Obviously, you want it to be in the future. In a couple of years, it should be either Peter Skoronski or J.C. Latham, right? One of those guys should have grown into the leader of the offensive line room, that guy that gets the remote next. But right now, having it be Lloyd Cushenberry, someone that you invested a lot of money into and has already taken that next step to be the role, even if he's not out there the most rah-rah, in-your-face, all this kind of guy, that's so important for this offensive line. We saw how important it was last year when no one had that, leadership quality to them on this offensive line quite yet.
I think D-lines respect him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
He puts a lot of them in the dirt.
I'm just saying, when that huddle breaks and, the offensive line goes to the line of scrimmage for the first time and you lock eyes with one another, you know how this play is going to go already.
Yeah.
So when they look in Lloyd's eyes as he's scanning the front that he's about to block, they see a grown man.
Right.
You see, they don't see some quivering-eyed, snot-nosed rook out there like, It's like, oh, yeah, I got this guy right here. Matter of fact, they start chirping on the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
Fresh fish. So you're getting a whole lot of attention that you just didn't even want to have.
Yep.
You got all the smoke.
Well, hey, listen, when we come back, we're going to talk about expectations for J.C. Latham and what's a reasonable expectation for him his rookie year in 2024. I'm Zach. He's Brad. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 24 years. We've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we are now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in the barn of his backyard of a single-wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But I always tell Blaine to jump.
It's a football Friday here on Blaine and Zach. I'm joined by Brad Hopkins in the studios. Blaine is off, and we're presented by All Four Seasons Garage Store. And we got the chat is active, the F&M Bank chat, whether you go to Zone TV on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook Live, or YouTube. It does not matter. People are talking, and people have things to say. And we have some things to say, because we got to talk about J.C. Latham. It's year one. And listen, I understand fans aren't great at this. Media is probably guilty culprits as well. But we're not very good at setting expectations, I feel like, sometimes for listeners or fans about what to expect from a rookie. And J.C. Latham is a 7th-round pick who is switching sides from his college position, even though he does have experience at left tackle, and some things do translate. But I look at it like this. People are probably expecting like him pitching shutouts week by week by week by week, but that's probably just not really reasonable to expect from a rookie that still probably has a little bit of ways to go. So from an offensive line standpoint, what is a proper expectation in your mind to set for J.C. Latham if you're a fan? And what should we expect from him? Or what should the team actually have their expectations as? Well,
first off, they looked at all the tape. They saw before they drafted him the capabilities of a guy that could anchor an offensive line. Mm-hmm. His size, ability, his ability to basically acclimate himself to a system. Those are all things that you can never really can tell with a rookie until he actually starts experiencing that. You know, how well they're going to adapt. And I think that he does that extremely well. His attention to detail, his desire to want to get better, him understanding the moment itself, period. You know, not only what that means for his future and how he's going to be a part of this offense. He's in at the bottom level, Zach. Think about that. The rebirth, the first year of the Brian Callahan era, he is now part of that, okay? And I think what they got is a really good tackle that will then ultimately end up probably and maybe the best they've ever had.
Wow. Even including you?
I told him that.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
I told him that because, well, first off, whenever you see an offensive lineman play offensive line without gloves, you need to be concerned.
I love that.
Because that guy's a bear.
Yeah.
He's just a big old bear. And if you know anything about a bear is probably the most athletic animal in the woods or wherever they hang out. I was going to say the jungle, but this ain't the Jungle Book. You know what I'm saying? So you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Extremely fast, extremely huge. The agility, he can climb a tree in a second. I'm not saying JC can. I'm talking about a bear. But the point is, he is built like that, right? And he has the intelligence and the desire to improve his technique and skill to put them two together. So now you got an unbelievably athletic, super smart dude that understands about getting better every week. Every week he's going to be faced with a new task, right?
Right.
He's the kind of guy that's going to watch the tape of the guy that played you the week before and get all the dirty minutia. What beat you? You know, what are you having the problems with the most? And he'll put that in his game, and that'll make him even better as time goes on. The one thing that did help me, and I was baptized by fire, was that we were both rookie starters, okay? Him being the 7th pick and me being the 13th pick, we weren't drafted to sit back there and hang around, you know? So I got my lessons from Bruce Smith. I got my lessons from Reggie White. I got my lessons from Lorenzo O'Neal. I got my Leslie O'Neal. I got my lessons.
Probably learn a lesson from Montez Sweat week 1.
Yep. How about that?
Yeah.
Sean Jones, William Fuller, all these dudes, right? And that's who he's going to learn from.
Yeah.
That'll make him better. Those reps that he's going to get on the field, that's game time experience. That's job experience. And it'll just get better and better and better. And it's also fortunate for him that the offensive line is probably in the best hands from a coaching standpoint than they've been in since probably Mudge left.
Yeah.
That's just real talk.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there have been some pretty good dudes that come in here.
I know people like Russ Grimm, but I feel like I think we're talking about two guys a little bit above Russ Grimm.
So just, on average, the kind of instruction these kids are getting, man, the rising tide.
So with when he was at the press conference, and I don't know if it was his opening press conference or maybe the second press conference, and he's talking about he only wanted to wear gloves when he was when he only had to wear gloves when his hands were bleeding. That's some real king stuff right there, right? Like that is like legit. Like let me say this, when I'm watching tape to prepare for this next draft class or whatever, and I'm watching offensive line tape, I need to focus on the people not wearing gloves first.
First off, there's not going to be many of them.
Yeah.
So they stand out. The only other dude I saw that played the offensive line was Todd Williams from Florida back in the day, and he knocked the dude out with his helmet on. Yeah, with those bear paws. So when you got things like that, and right, like he said, he's just trying to keep his blood off of you. So he's why he's wearing gloves. It's not like he cares that much. But I'm just using that as kind of a tongue-in-cheek situation to show you the toughness, right? Along with the ability, along with the intelligence. That makes for a super athlete that I think is going to play here for a long time. Put it this way. He's going to get a lot more checks than the one that he got as a rookie. He's going to get many, many bites at the apple. And if I know Rand Carthon, that boy ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. That's what we need. We need to see the Tennessee Titans actually extend their young players. They haven't had many young players.
And develop them. Hold on a second. Go back to Dylan Radin's second rounder from 2021. Petit Ferrer, third rounder from 2022. So they've been invested in these young dudes, but what kind of instruction have they been getting?
Right.
None as good as they've gotten this year.
Yeah, that's right. And then those two guys are, looking for contracts and contracts extensions, in their own right too. It'll be real interesting to see how this offensive line goes. But when we come back, we're going to be talking some college football because the University of Tennessee plays the University of Tennessee Chattanooga, and what we need to see from certain SEC teams as we focus in on some SEC storylines. I'm Zach. He's Brad. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. It's the college football hour here on Blaine and Zach. And Blaine is off today, but I got B-Hop here filling in. And this is 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. We're kicking off hour 2, though, with our stat of the week. And if you are the first caller on the stat of the week with the correct answer, you are going to win a one-night stay for 2 at Bally's Evansville Hotel, plus dinner for 2 at Bally Bet Sportsbook and Bar. If you think you know the answer, you call 615-737-1045, and it is a Brad Hopkins-centric trivia question.
Oh, boy.
And if I counted correctly, 13 seasons in the league, correct?
That is correct.
So 13 regular seasons. During those 13 regular seasons, you recovered a certain number of fumbles. And so the listeners have to figure out and call in at 615-737-1045. How many regular season fumbles did you recover in those 13 seasons? So what you guys call in, 615-737-1045, to win a one-night stay for 2 at Bally's Evansville Hotel, plus dinner for 2 at Bally Bet Sportsbook and Bar, which, by the way, is halfway between Nashville and Indianapolis. So you could schedule and use this to maybe go to Bally's. Next day you wake up, go on a Saturday. Next day you wake up and go watch the Tennessee Titans in Indianapolis beat down the Colts this year. So maybe you can schedule. Yeah, we're going to beat them down this year.
I like that.
I like it. So listen, as we already discussed, Colorado barely beat North Dakota State last night. NC State also had its hands full with Western Carolina beating them 38-21, which should have been a bigger blowout than what it was. But Missouri, who Tennessee will be fighting with for a playoff spot all year long, whipped Murray State 51-0. We talked yesterday on Blaine and Zach here, and we were discussing, what did Nico need to show us? What did Nico need to do and all this stuff to this first game? Like, what do you need to see? But Blaine took it into another direction later on, talking about this team needs to win by 30 points, and this team needs to be minimum, 30 points minimum, and that's when Nico can be on the bench. When they're up by 30 points, right, Nico could be on the bench. So why they need to win big, right? I'm not just trying, maybe it's not necessarily a need that dictates what they are the whole season long, but you're coming out with this well-regarded, highly recruited quarterback. You can't be NC State. You can't be Colorado. You need to be Missouri. You need to be Kansas, who also whooped up on someone. Arkansas, who whooped up on someone. You need to whoop up on University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, to really put your name on the map week 1 and get this year kick-started.
Right. Unless we're looking at some, phenom here that goes on to be undefeated, just runs through the Southern Conference, and we just didn't see him coming. Yeah. And they just really sucker punched UT in the face, and then all of a sudden they went on to be great, and we just didn't understand who they were. That's probably not the case. And especially, first off, it's in Neyland. Mm-hmm. What else do I need to say?
Right.
It's in Neyland, and this is the first starting debut of Nico in front of the home crowd. I know we've got some Iowa game experience, and he's coming in, in that situation, whatever. But no, this is the first time him being the starter, he gets to play in front of his hometown, in front of Rocky Top. And people are going to roll out to see that. And they don't want to see a close ball game. Because it's not supposed to be close by the resources that UT has, the availability of athletes like Nico, 5-star prospects, all these people. See, nowadays, there is going to be a gap in the competition. And it's going to be completely divided into the haves and the have-nots. If you have the resources to compete for a national championship, it will be obvious. If you don't, it will be just as obvious. Right?
Right.
Because you have to have, whether you're talking about, the infrastructure from, I'm doing the Baylor game in Waco. They got a brand spanking new weight room. Biggest one in Texas. That's a lot to say that, right?
That is a lot.
Before that, the coaches were like sharing rooms and doing all this craziness, right? But if you do have the resources from an alumni base, from a booster's ability base, from just whatever, to basically excel your program, whether it's $40 million a year you're spending in it, $30 million or whatever, now you can get those kind of athletes that do compete for national championships. It'll make it easier for you to get the Travis Hunters that can be program changers, and then they go on and extend their athletic potential playing well into their 20s professionally, right? But it starts with you. And UT has that kind of ability. Not taking shots at Chattanooga. Chattanooga ain't Knoxville. Not in that capacity. And nor should they be.
No.
If they were, they'd be in a bigger conference than the one they're in.
Yeah.
So is there a separation of absolutely? And in college football, style points matter. You don't want to see a close game. In the NFL, guess what? They all got All-Americans. They're all captains of their football team when they were in college, right? They're all making millions of dollars by and large. Even the guys that are, the young guys are doing that, right? And I'm not saying that they're not doing it in college, but all 300 schools ain't doing it, right? So you become those schools like the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Ohio States, the Washingtons, the USCs, I can keep going, the Penn States, these programs that, will, like I just heard that stat. I heard another stat. The team that wins the national championship, by and large, has most guys put into the draft that year. They get drafted that year because they probably figure that you have the best situation, the best thing going.
Yeah.
But what they don't really realize is that it's not the great teams that win ball games. It's great teams that win ball games. Now, those great teams usually have some great players on them, but it's their connection as a team that wins ball games. Because as individuals, you can't do it. Because we saw it last night. We saw the two best players on the football field barely win a game. And they had no control over the other parts of it, which are part of Colorado.
Yeah.
So it's about the team.
Yeah, I look at it and I go, we talked about it, like there's this upper middle class in the SEC. It's like Missouri, Ole Miss, and University of Tennessee. As far as their expectations, like they are three programs that should be fighting for that 12th or 11th college football playoff spot. To be that last SEC team in to the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
And I look at it from this. If you are going up against University of Tennessee Chattanooga, and you're University of Tennessee with Nico and James Pierce and all this, offensive line that's pretty much settled. You got Dylan Sampson running the ball.
Yeah,
a
whole bunch of them.
You got all these players, right? With all these high expectations. Don't play with your food. You want to prove that you are in the SEC and you're a big boy among these SEC guys and you belong in the upper middle class. Don't play with your food. Go in there and whip them, because I feel like if Nico is still in there halfway through the third quarter, things are going poorly for the University of Tennessee and they're not doing the job they should be doing on the field.
That's funny. I had to write that down. Don't play with your food. I'm just sitting there watching this lion, right?
Yeah, right.
And there's just
they're the lion,
just born gazelle, just sitting there. Yeah. You're like, quit playing with him.
Yeah, he's just like bobbing them around and just like and all this stuff instead of just like eating them. Like eat your food.
Yeah, I also saw that one where this cheetah was running to a gazelle that was drinking out of the water hole, and that rascal put a juke on him and got away. So I'm thinking, you don't want Chattanooga to be that juking gazelle.
Yeah.
That makes a game of it.
You got to. If you want to be taken seriously, because that's what UT fans take themselves way too seriously, but they want to be taken seriously, and they have the coach to do it, in my opinion. I call him Coach Dad or Coach Youth Pastor because he looks like a youth pastor or a dad.
Josh?
Yeah. he just,
I never looked at him like that.
Coach Youth Pastor.
That's terrible.
But he's really good, and he's doing great on the recruiting trail. He's trying to turn around the defense. He's already turned around the offense. And look, maybe their offensive skill players don't translate to the NFL as well as people hope, but sometimes that just happens. At the end of the day, UT fans want this program to be considered one of the tops in be a threat and a force in the college football world. And right now, it's like they've just been a spoiler and floating around. It's time for them to take that next step, and Nico's supposed to be that guy. That's the expectations that the fans put on it. So I'm just holding them accountable for their expectations.
Josh does a heck of a job recruiting, but guess what? Having Nico does a better job than that.
Yeah.
Because when you can see and the caliber of guys that you're surrounding him with, or even his influence itself by how he plays. Hey, because I remember this. I remember being in high school as a tight end, Zach, and one of the recruiting tools that the University of Illinois used on me is that, hey, dude, we got this dude that transferred in Purdue. His name is Jeff George. I mean, man is a killer. And this is defensive backs talking to me. They're like, this ball is out of his hands before I even come out of my break, dude. We can't even cover this cat. You're gonna love playing in this offense. They use Jeff George as a recruiting tool, much like they're going to use Nico.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because talent like that just, often just go strolling through Rocky Top, maybe more consistently now that they started it with that.
Yeah. I mean, Nico has to live up to the hype, right? I mean,
Well, that first and foremost.
And I'm not saying that we have to see everything in week one that he's going to be, and what week one dictates what he's going to be either. Just that the fact we need to see Nico go out there, run this offense efficiently, get them up big, and go to the bench. If he's still playing halfway through the third quarter, something's going wrong, or there's a bad coaching decision being made, but something's going wrong. And you want to feel pretty good by halftime saying, okay, Nico may come out for a drive or two, but he's likely not going to see a lot of ball in the second half. So a lot of pressure on him. And there's a lot of pressure on these other SEC teams, and we're going to get to some SEC storylines after the break. I'm Zach. He's Brad. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Tennessee, summer's in full swing, and Cool Ray's here to make sure your home is ready for all the fun and the sun. And we've got some sizzling deals that will keep you comfortable and worry-free all season long. So ensure your family stays hydrated and healthy with free water quality testing, because nothing beats a refreshing drink of pure water on a hot summer day. And Cool Ray also offers a $149 main sewer line camera inspection. Right now, they also offer 15% off whole home dehumidifiers, as well as $500 off whole home generators. So let Cool Ray take care of your home so you can focus on family memories. So call us today and take advantage of these scorching hot deals. Cool Ray, your trusted partner for a cool and comfortable Tennessee summer. And all you have to do is visit coolray.com. Cool Ray, keeping Tennessee cool, plumbing right, and always lights bright.
It's Blaine and Zach back for an encore segment of our college football hour. I got Brad Hopkins over here across from me. Blaine is off today, and we're on 104.5 The Zone, brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. But before we talk more college football, let's talk a little bit of high school football, because the high school football game of the week, high school football is back.
Let's go.
And 104.5 The Zone will once again feature one of the best Middle Tennessee matchups each Friday for 104.5 The Zone's high school football game of the week with Will Bowling and Brad Hopkins on the call. Tune in this Friday tonight as they call Brentwood at Brentwood Academy, starting at 6:45 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on 104.5 The Zone. Now let's transition a little bit of college football. Let's talk some SEC storylines, because it's week one.
Do we have to?
Yeah,
right.
Come on.
I'm a Big Ten guy.
Well, that's all right. I won't hold it against you. Listen, SEC got so many storylines, so many teams ranked, so many teams fighting for college football playoffs and dominance and all this stuff. So to me, this is one of the more interesting years in the SEC. And I'm going to start off because I am wearing an Alabama shirt, as everybody in the chat likes to remind me. The F&M Bank chat on the Zone TV likes to remind me this is a University of Tennessee audience. We talked about University of Tennessee yesterday. We talked about University of Tennessee today. We're going to talk a little bit Alabama. And I don't want to, anybody driving their cars off the road. But with the new head coach from Washington, Kalen DeBoer, here at University of Alabama.
Yeah.
And what Jalen Milroe was able to do over the course of the season last year on the field, I kind of get this sense that Jalen Milroe is this year's Jaden Daniels. This guy that is going to explode on the stat sheet in this new system, and I think he's going to work his way into a first-round quarterback. Is that too much of a homer? Because I feel it's a very objective thing.
It is objective, but it's also not out of the realm of possibility. Here's an extremely talented player that, through all intents and purposes, we knew had a huge say in Alabama getting as far as they did last year.
Right.
Okay, it's crazy. It's even almost like an anomaly to think an SEC team wasn't in a national championship, but Alabama was right there knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Like they traditionally are, right? Can that tradition keep up? With players like Jalen Milroe, yes, it can. It can then attract other players like Jalen Milroe to kind of keep the conveyor of great, talented players still intact, even though the great Nick Saban is no longer running the program.
Yeah.
But then again, Kalen DeBoer has his own reputation. I mean, he took his own team to the Natty. You know what I mean? And that's without the SEC's help.
And had 5 or 6 people drafted as well. I mean, he had Roger Rosengarten, Troy Fatanu, Michael Penix. He had Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, and he had Rome Odunze, who the Tennessee Titans will see, who was my favorite wide receiver, and they'll see him first week with the Chicago Bears. So I'm with you. It's an offensive system that I think he'll really thrive in, and I think that's really important for his growth, because you saw him. You saw the talent. Even though he got, mysteriously benched that second game, this is the talent that we all saw that back half. I mean, University of Tennessee fans saw it first, had front row seats to the Jalen Milroe show last year. And this year, I expect bigger and better things. So that's one of the storylines I'm watching. They play Western Kentucky University, so not a defensive powerhouse, but need to see some growth from Jalen Milroe. Very excited to see what this new offense looks like as an Alabama fan. And any SEC fan needs to have their eyes glued to what this Alabama offense is going to look like, because I don't know if anybody really knows. You have Washington tape.
Well,
but
they've got skill positions, and Alabama always has had 4 or 5 stars at the skill positions. But what about the big bodies this year? They're kind of young up front.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Wilkin Fromby. I think he's a redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
They even had a transfer coming in, Parker Brailsford. He's a redshirt sophomore. So some new parts, some relatively young parts. You still got a sophomore in Caden Proctor, who's still obviously living up to the billing, but he's still a young guy. You know what I mean? So a lot of youth, and maybe that youth is better served because you are running different styles, different things, and you haven't picked up a lot of bad habits. And we'll talk about that later on, too.
Yeah. So another SEC storyline I'm interested in is Georgia. Can Georgia just put away Clemson? Talk about a team that played with their food a lot last year. There are games where you're looking up and you're like, they're why is McNeese State this close to Georgia in the third quarter? And this is a team that's had its off-field issues with certain players and everything, but this is a team with good pedigree. This is a Nick Saban sort of, version of Georgia. Kirby Smart is that next great head coach, the next guy to carry that baton for years and years and years, where everybody just gets so mad that Kirby Smart is in the conversation every year. He's that guy. But can Georgia put away Clemson? And they have the superior talent. They have the superior roster. They have the superior coach. Can they just put away Clemson and not make it a close game? I think that goes a long way to what they can be in SEC football. Because if they don't, if it is a close game, teams like Tennessee, teams like Alabama, Texas, they're all salivating looking at Georgia. If they play Clemson really close and really tight, they're getting their flaws exposed, even if they win.
I agree with that, but I think that Georgia is used to being the hunted, Zach.
Yeah.
Okay. But as the roster turns over, how much of that mentality remains intact?
Right.
If you play close games against Clemson, then you start to waver a little bit on that confidence that has been a huge part of their success. Alabama feels the same way. When we step on the football field, we, by the most part, are the best team on the field from top to bottom. 0 to 99. So Georgia has to have that same mentality consistently. But guess what? It's not like Dabo don't know what winning is like.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just might unlock the right thing by saying the right thing in the right moment to inspire a performance that was unexpected. So to just say it might be just a dirt road whooping, of course, we expect a certain level of output from Georgia. But I'm not going to say sleep on the Tigers. I'm just saying maybe they're not just going to get batted around with like a baby gazelle like we're thinking.
We've had a lot of hunting references, a lot of wildlife references, bears, lions, gazelles, playing with food, being
I used
the hunted.
to do car stuff. You know what I mean?
So maybe this needs to be a nature show of some sort. Speaking of Tigers, I guess, the LSU Tigers, I wonder if they've lost too much talent to really stay relevant. I've always found Brian Kelly to be very overrated as a head coach. He hasn't really won the big one when he's had his opportunities to. He seems to squander some talent, never live up to the hype that is surrounding him every stop. And they play USC. So LSU's ranked 13th. USC's ranked 23rd, who's lost their own quarterback and talent.
Right.
But LSU has lost Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Mason Smith, Jordan Jefferson, Mekhi Wingo. Top-tier quarterback, 2 extremely talented wide receivers, and 3 guys on their defensive line that were wrecking crew. Now, they still got Harold Perkins. They got Garrett Nussmeier.
I'd say, yeah.
But can LSU be in the mix with University of Tennessee, Missouri, and Ole Miss? Or are they really just going to be like, they're there, but they're not anything?
If your quarterback isn't super dynamic, then don't the other parts of your offense have to pick that up and be explosive in certain areas? I'm not saying that C.J. Daniels coming in as a grad transfer, which should start Chris Hilton, Kyron Lacey. These guys are playmakers, but are they the ones that the defensive coordinators lose sleep over?
Right.
And I don't know that Gus Nussmeier is that guy that really strikes fear in the heart. Certainly not like Jaden Daniels, but there has to be a certain kind of feel to this team, and I'm not sure that they have that.
It just feels like they're lacking something.
That's what it's
Harold, when Harold Perkins is the best player, and no offense to Harold Perkins. He's a Micah Parsons-esque player for LSU. But there's other ways to attack this defense to avoid Harold Perkins. Like you don't last year they didn't have that issue, and while they still scored a lot of points and they still won some thrilling games and all this and that, they just couldn't get over the hump to make some real noise. Like I am looking for all these people who say Brian Kelly is this elite head coach, this great head coach. I'm looking for something that's going to make that true. Every year I hear all these pundits say, well, this is the year for Brian Kelly, or this is the year for LSU since he's taken the job. And this year, I think they've kind of taken a different turn. I think they've kindly caught on that maybe the LSU hype needs to go away for a little bit and needs to be earned. Because I never felt like it really got earned. It was just given. And now they've lost all these A-plus players, and they got 1A+ player and just a bunch of B and C students, it feels like.
Yeah, but this is his third year into the program. I'm not sure how long it takes for a guy to cement his culture.
Yeah.
Especially a guy of Brian Kelly's, his stature, right, and what he brings to the table. But sometimes dealing with guys that you didn't bring into the program first is, can be more difficult than you thought. I mean, if you think about it, have they been really active in the portal, especially for guys that are going to make an immediate impact first day in campus? There's only 3 dudes that have transferred in that are starters, and that's on offense and defense, that are supposed to make an immediate impact. So maybe that kind of shows you guys are willing to stick around a little bit. They're kind of waiting to see this thing kind of, turn a little bit and get better quality players in year after year to all of a sudden now you look up and you are competing with the Georgias and the Tennessees, and teams that you kind of expect to be at the top of the mountain playing in Atlanta.
How much leeway does Brian Kelly have before, if he doesn't make it to the college football playoffs this year? I'm sure he has one more year, but if he doesn't make it again next year, how much leeway do you give a college coach like that? Give them time to build their culture, because we're talking about a few years now. He's kind of, it feels like he's living off a win, the Alabama win now for a couple, years. And at what point?
What have you done for me lately?
It's a great reputation.
Yeah.
Highly respected. But at some point, kind of like Deion Sanders, you got to start winning. And you got to win in the SEC. You got to win the stuff that matters. And it feels like he hasn't really won a game that matters in the sense of a championship game or been in a championship fight or been in, just kind of feels he's always the 5th best team since coming in the SEC.
I don't think beating Arizona or a team like that's going to have the impact as, say, beating an Alabama. Yeah. When it comes to comparing Deion and Brian as to who might not end up being there first. I mean, that kind of deal. But I still think that LSU has the ability to recruit like the best in the SEC because of their legacy. Because they do crank out guys on Sundays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And because they do have guys on Heisman watches. It's not beyond the realm of possibility to be looking at dudes that we're going to be talking about. College game day will be coming back to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sooner than later, when you had that kind of program, that kind of ability, they had that kind of resource. I mean, we talked about that earlier in the program, the separation of the haves and have-nots. LSU definitely has that kind of ability. I mean, the entire state rallies around that program, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think that it wouldn't be hard, first off, to harvest your in-state guys, lock the borders, right? And then go ahead and get a couple of border guys every now and then.
Yeah.
Alabama, steal a couple. Florida, steal a couple. Georgia, steal a couple. Texas is right there, man. Get on in there. Hey, Texas said you're not good enough to play over there. Come on over here. You know what I mean? That kind of deal. So they have a chance to, they're right there in the melting pot of great talented players with speed and all that other stuff.
I think a dark horse in the SEC that can make some give other teams real headaches is Texas A&M. They got a new coach, Mike Elko, who I really like. I really like what he's done. And that hurts because I don't like Texas A&M fans or the program itself. But they play Notre Dame. They're 7th-ranked Notre Dame versus 20th-ranked Texas A&M, where Texas A&M is actually favored right now. They are the betting favorites, and it's on primetime on Saturday. So will Texas A&M start off with a bang or a dud as they face Notre Dame?
Marcus coached the head coach at Notre Dame. He coached with my son at Purdue, so I have a huge affection for that guy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable career to this point. But you see his discipline is a huge part of his success. And I'm not saying that Mike Elko is less disciplined or whatever else, or is less fiery or influential, but just talking about getting a team ready to play, I don't think Marcus has a problem with that. So maybe he's taking the fact that they're underdogs as motivation.
Which is so weird, right?
That's disrespect, y'all.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's on the grease board. They picked you to lose.
Yeah.
So he's going to probably use that, But then again, how much pressure is on Mike to get a fast start, to get that kind of, hey, look, you got an SEC schedule to play with. So it's already going to get a lot harder too.
Right.
So let's go and take care of the ones that, that they're saying we should win. It's going to be a fight. I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be a Chattanooga UT game by any stretch.
That's probably shaping up. Georgia Clemson, really good matchup. But I think Texas A&M Notre Dame may be game of the week, right?
And rightfully so.
Prime time.
Yes. Well, first off, the Golden Domers, they sell it anywhere.
You're right.
They're all over the planet.
Yeah.
So they should probably. I'm shocked that they didn't start the season out in Dublin.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been fun. It'd been a lot better than watching DJ.
Say it.
Well, I unfortunately say ugly eye all the time because that's all. Ugly.
What'd you say?
Ungulale.
What was that?
Ungulale. Close enough.
Sure. I've heard it both ways. But that would have been a way better game. I mean, Notre Dame, Texas A&M over there would have been a blast. It would have been a culture shock for probably some of those Texas A&M people to go over to Ireland. Have you ever been to Ireland?
I have not.
It is my favorite place.
Really?
I've been. It's beautiful. A little travel tip: go to Dingle, do the Slayhead Drive, but get an Airbnb in Dingle.
Slayhead Drive? What's that?
Yeah, so the Slayhead Drive is where the cliffs. You go see all this beautiful landscape and green and oceans going up against the cliffs of Moher. It's awesome. But the Irish love us. They love talking to Americans and, having you over to the pub and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched Pat McAfee last week. I saw it all.
But he had a big time.
Isn't that amazing how you can do a show drunk? That's crazy.
Hey, listen. I've done it from experience. Not on this show. And I will never, I've had to retire the drinking. But our podcast has some lost episodes that will never see the light of day because we all got a little too tipsy on there. But that was the whole point. That's what's endeared us to fans in our early goings. What do you need to see from, and we talked about this yesterday, but what do you need to see from this University of Tennessee team by the time that game hits zero, that clock hits zero, fourth quarter? What will you need to have seen to be like, I feel really, really great about this University of Tennessee team?
I want to see explosive plays because you're going to need those this year. I want to see a quarterback with plenty of time to work with. I don't want to see him getting chased around. I want to see accuracy. I want to see sound decision-making coming from the QB position. No thinking about it. If you're going to pull it down, go. We know you can run. I'm not too worried about that. The rules protect you. You can slide and get out of bounds, whatever.
Yeah.
But I also want to see a defense that's unrelenting. I want to see James Pierce Jr. looking like about to cuss. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I expect him to chase. Yeah. I expect him to chase Artupius.
There you
Artupius? Whatever his name is. But then again, Chattanooga was 8th in the FCS last year. So it's not like there's slouches, but I'm just saying.
James Pierce, high expectations coming into this season. A lot of draft experts expect him to be the first edge off the board. A lot of them expect him to be a top 5 pick.
Yeah, man.
Play like it, right? I mean, I think that's where I'm at with Tennessee. You have all these guys. You have Nico. You have James Pierce. You have this offensive line that's been around.
All of them back.
Play like it. But this, his name escapes me. Brazel? Is that the guy from Clemson that transferred?
Brazel from Tulane.
Tulane? Yeah, that was Tulane. Brazel, this guy came in, he had Michael Pratt as his quarterback last year. And, Jaquan Jackson was across from him, but he transferred. Yeah. Big, athletic guy that everybody has, again, real high hopes for.
6'6", 200.
He's massive, and he's super athletic. But, the thing is that he hasn't really had that great of a quarterback or been part of that great of a system. Now he's over on this system here at University of Tennessee that can take advantage of the athleticism, that size. You got to just see all these guys that have all these expectations live up to it in week one, and that's kind of where I'm at with this whole University of Tennessee. It feels like they're kind of in this wait-and-see mode. But for Nico, I have an offensive line question related to Nico for you.
Okay.
Your offensive line, and all you guys are together. Is there a pressure knowing that Nico maybe is not physically built to withstand a lot of hits? So does that add a little bit of extra pressure? May not add any pressure or may not. I don't know. But does that add pressure that he's a guy that if he falls incorrectly off a hit, that's your fault, that he's got a high chance of getting injured?
Well, first off, we just don't play the game, worrying about injuries like that, and neither does Nico, even though you might see him being slight of frame and thinking, man, this dude takes a good shot and it's going to be over, but like hitting a skeleton, right? No, it's not, he doesn't play the game at that level, and neither does the offensive line. What they think about doing is their job, because if they do their job, then everything else is everything. They don't have to worry about protection breaking down. They don't have to worry about Nico getting hit if everyone does what they're supposed to do. Now, every now and then, things happen. Plays break down. We're going to see him scramble. We're going to see him try to make a play. And then you just got to be active. You got to be downfield and you got to whatever. But do you take it personally? Of course you do. Because offensive line is the only position that if you don't do your job, somebody else gets hit.
Yeah.
Think about that. As a defender, if I don't go make the tackle, what happens to me? Nothing. But if I whiff on a block, the running back gets crushed. The quarterback that's patting the ball, looking down the field for an open receiver, gets crushed. That's my responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. That's my only job. I'm out there to make holes for the run game and blocking people, right? I'm not out there catching the ball. I'm not out there throwing it. I'm not out there tackling people. I'm not out kicking field goals. My job is to protect, by the word definition right there. That does make it personal for me. Did I want anybody to get near Steve at all? Never. And when I got him sacked, did I take it personally? I was more mad at myself than anybody could ever be in the stands, even Steve himself, about getting hit. That was personal for me. And for Lance and for, what's his name? Andrew, Cooper, Javantez, all these dudes, they take that personally, protecting the guy that America is talking about.
Yep.
Think about that. Their performance is on spotlight now because of how talented the guy is that they're blocking for.
Yep.
And he can't be as good as he is if we're not as good as we need to be.
That's right. Well, hey, listen, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the University of Tennessee, but also get back to the Tennessee Titans for just a hot second. I'm Zach. He's Brad. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, this is Blaine Bishop, and I want to know if you have heard about peptides. Peptides are shaking up the fitness world, and they are naturally occurring aminos in our bodies. And as we age, they start to decline, and at some point, they may need to be supplemented. This is why our workouts can stop being productive at the gym. So maybe you feel like you've hit a wall, or perhaps you feel tired all the time. You may be struggling to stay awake even in the evenings when you get home from work. So if you had the thought that this is just a normal part of aging, it doesn't have to be that way. Peptides are proven to increase muscle and performance, burn fat, and help with recovery between workouts and more. And peptides can even help with motivation and mental clarity. These are safe, naturally occurring aminos, not pharmaceuticals. A natural and holistic way to get your body back to peak performance. Plus, Edge Peptide Therapy has the most comprehensive blood panel around. So when you go to Edge, you will know exactly what is going on inside of your body and what it needs to get back to peak performance, just like I did. So feel better from the inside out. So go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com. Or you can give them a call at 615-724-1878. That's 724-1878.
It's the final segment here on Blaine and Zach. I got Brad Hopkins in here across from me while Blaine is off today. We are on 104.5 The Zone, of course, and brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. The chat is mad at me already, the F&M Bank chat, because I think that Nico, who is 6'6", 216, could possibly be, and this is something that Blaine also brought up, by the way. It's not just a Bama fan. It also is a professional football player, about his shoulder and taking some hits and falling on his shoulder, a guy his size. And listen, 6'6", 216 is still pretty slender. Maybe beefy, but still pretty slender. But I'm not surprised by that. Also, Matt Dillon on Facebook, which Facebook never really has any good comments coming from it for the most part, I've noticed. But the college talk is not hitting on much today. Well, we hit on Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Texas A&M, and University of Tennessee. So we've hit on a lot in here.
Let's keep it moving.
I want to nerd out for a second. So I'm going to ask you a nerdy question that may need some explanation or whatever. But when an offensive lineman is pulling, so, coming out from their position instead of going in the front, attacking their defender in the front, they come around to the side and go get someone else.
Sure.
How much does technique matter when you're pulling? And do you have to think about hand placement, footwork, et cetera, or just move as fast as you can and hit as hard as you can when you get to the hole?
Well, first off, whenever you're moving from point A to point B, it's always about technique.
Gotcha.
So I have to take the proper footwork, to get myself away from the center in the offensive line, so that way I can have a clear path down the line of scrimmage, right, behind the offensive line. But then it depends which puller I am. If I'm a guard, I'll usually have the defensive end that's on the line of scrimmage to kick out. Now, it's also depending on what he does. If he steps down inside, then I'll probably end up having to block his outside shoulder and then let the back read off to the outside, or even the next puller run around my outside, versus me kicking him out and making a huge crevice for them to run underneath me, right?
Right.
So I'm going to basically take what the defense gives me, depending on how he reacts to me coming downhill. Now, for the next guy, which is usually the tackle that's pulling, he's got to get past all of that trash that he sees now from the guard that's now trying to kick out that end or, block him to run around him, and get to the next level. The next level is who? Linebackers, who are usually trying to either keep contained, because if that guy slants inside, then somebody's got to go outside to make sure that you don't give up the edge, right?
Right.
And it'll probably be the backer, who you're then going to meet in the hole or on the outside. So, and then the back has to do a great job of reading both of those blocks and then find the crease and get upfield, get north and south. But it's all about technique, because as I'm coming down the line of scrimmage, I've got to be low enough to not get knocked out, right? Because this guy is going to be doing a couple of things. He's going to be flattening down the line of scrimmage to take all my block, or he's going to try and contain himself and make everything go back inside of him where his defenders are, right? So now I have to kick him out and make that hole wider, so that way more traffic can get through. So it's blocking what you see.
And the reason I ask is because obviously this Tennessee Titans team made what I think is a pretty bold move in keeping Jalen Duncan and John Ojukwu as their backup tackles for now. But I feel like it's bold because you could have gone and leaned on some veteran presence that Bill Callahan has something, he's pretty familiar with those guys. But Rand Carthon was asked a couple of days ago on if Bill Callahan plays a part in choosing to keep younger players at the tackle position. This is what Rand Carthon said.
Yeah, I would say so. JD's done a good job. He's continued to develop. He started a ton of games for us last year at left tackle, which gave him great experience. He's also finished a couple games for us at right, and so he's getting that experience over there. And I think OJ, I joked with him yesterday. I think he was the first person to ever teach my daughter what reporting eligible meant. I've never seen somebody take so much pride in reporting eligible when that was his role, last year. But he's another guy that came on and earned it. You know what I mean? And so, and then let's be frank, let's be honest. This time of year, nobody's letting go of good quality tackles. But we've invested in these guys, so it's we have to see this investment through and allow these guys to get the experience.
So what do you think about that? Because I've talked to a few people, we've talked on this show as well, that while Jerron Christian and Leroy Watson are the veterans, and they have experience with Bill Callahan. They didn't really seem like veterans in the preseason. I thought they were pushed around a lot. Leroy Watson was on his back a lot on the ground. And these are against, 3s and 4s. And a lot of people seem to think that Jalen Duncan was probably the best backup tackle out of this group. And listen, when he was drafted, he was a 6th-round project. I got thrusted into the starting spotlight way ahead of when he should be.
Right.
And he didn't probably have the most quality of coaching to be able to withstand the blows that he took last year. And he got a lot of hate. But Duke Manyweather, who does the O-line masterminds, went on record and said it would not surprise him if Jalen Duncan was going to be one of the better tackles from that draft class. So Jalen Duncan has the talent, but how do you rationalize 2 inexperienced guys? I mean, Jalen Duncan's got a lot of experience trial by fire, but what did you see from Jalen Duncan and John Ojukwu that said, okay, these were the right 2 guys to go with for now until maybe something happens later on down the road?
Well, first off, veterans have way too many bad habits that you have to then try and retrain. So when you use younger guys, you have a cleaner slate to work with. The best coaching that they've had to this point, so I would expect them to be the best versions of themselves to this point. It's only going to get better.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because, like I said, Jalen Duncan has all the athletic tools. A lot of people kind of thought that he maybe should go into guard, but I think they view him, and they've said, I guess I shouldn't say think, they view him as a swing tackle. So it'll be really interesting to see, what Jalen Duncan can do, and maybe he doesn't have to go out, and he could just actually sit there and develop and learn and be the best version he can under Bill Callahan. Can't learn from anybody better than Bill Callahan right
That's
now.
a fact, Jack.
That will do it for us. This has been Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone with Brad Hopkins in the seat. Brad had a great time today. Greatly appreciate you joining.
Great job.
And can't wait to talk maybe more football with you later on down the road here on 104.5 The Zone. For Brad.
Well, tell them about tonight, though. Brentwood Academy,
yes.
Brentwood.
Brentwood Academy, Brentwood, 6:45.
Lights, baby.
Right, 6:45 p.m. Hey, listen, if you want to hear more Brad after the high school football game, Tarleton State versus Baylor is going to be, he'll be on the broadcast for that as well. But in the meantime.
And in between time, peace.